we're going to do a little mini business course, right? We're going to wrap in a mini life course. And because I want to learn more about the Shiane C. Dixon Foundation. And before we get into the course, I want to know kind of the foundation. I know a little bit of it, but from you, the foundation of, how and why it started and what the, and how it is of service now to people.
Mm-hmm. Got it. I guess I'll start with how it started, kind of just take it from there and how it's a service. Yeah. Okay, cool. So 2009, unfortunately, my younger sister, she was 12 years old at the time, passed away, car accident with the entire family. Very turbulent times. Yeah, it was a lot going on at that moment in time. I was actually about to be a senior in high school, had a really good year playing sports, being in a new school. And then, that was kind of it was basically the worst time of my life when it came down to it. Personally, I'm not the type to really curl up in a ball and just not try to move forward from things. And it took a little bit of time, but as time progressed, I was like, how do we continue to honor Shiane's name at a very high capacity? Because she was a straight A student. She was a great athlete, and she just went above and beyond all the time. But one of the biggest things that really allowed her to do that was the resources she had. She had great financial backing. She had access to different mentors and teachers and the family to really keep her grounded, to really, I would say, emphasize her attributes, her raw attributes of intelligence and all that those great things. And kind of piece this together, like, how do we honor Shiane? How do we do this? And we concluded, why don't we just award the kids that are just like Shiane, the kids that are going above and beyond, that are doing as much as they can do inside and outside of school. And we started at Shiane's middle school because she was in 7th grade when she passed. So we started at her middle school, Rocky Hill Middle School in Clarksburg, Maryland, and started out giving an award immediately. And this was something that my mom put into fruition with the principal there back in, I think it was 2000. It was 2009 going to 2010. They started immediately. And we've been doing that ever since. To this day, I still give out the award for, it's like the Shiane C. Dixon Leadership Award at Rocky Hill Middle School. Basically, it's like the coolest, most popular kid that's doing everything, getting all A's at Rocky Hill.
Yeah.
Been nice giving that out. And as time progressed, we didn't have the nonprofit yet. We just kept doing a lot of things in Shiane's name, just to, keep everything alive as much as possible. And it wasn't until, I would call it 2019, where we created a nonprofit. And in this moment in time, we talk about synergy. We made sure that we can align everything. So I learned a very long time ago, my passion is actually teaching, and kids specifically. So I started really doing that on the ground, fresh out of college in 2017, just volunteering, going to schools, doing my thing. And by happenstance, I was able to start a program. So I teach 4th and 5th graders in this area at multiple schools, mainly really one school in Silver Spring, Maryland, and been doing this for some time. And I started in 2018 specifically. And when I had that going on and we're thinking about how do we keep stuff up and keeping Shiane's name, I was like, you know what, let me just take everything that I'm doing with these kids. Let's take the leadership award and let's also throw a scholarship in there. And let's create all this stuff and put it under Shiane's name. And that's what we ended up doing. So we have multiple programs throughout the county working with kids. As you know, John, I do like to travel. So when we travel, we're in Shiane's name. If we're donating in different countries, all that good stuff. We've been everywhere from Jamaica to East Africa. Where else have we been? That's all I can think of off the top of my head. And then lastly, we created, similar to the 8th grade leadership award, we have a Shiane C. Dixon scholarship, a $10,000 scholarship that we put into fruition at the high school that Shiane would have went to. So we started that in 2022. And we got 2 award winners so far. Now we got one coming up in the next month or so. So we have interviews probably next week But yeah, that's how it all came into fruition. And we just want to make sure that we continually, one, just give back to the community as much as we possibly can, and also just keep Shiane's name alive
Yeah.
for many years to come. So,
Well, my thoughts and prayers to your entire family for that loss. I can't imagine how devastating it was, Hassan. But what a beautiful tribute to Shiane to build, this legacy of her name and her and just the intellect, that you're talking about, how she, was a straight A student, and just kind of passing that energy. It's every parent's nightmare and every sibling's nightmare, right? What you've walked through, and what your whole family has walked through. But what a beautiful, path that you have built out of tragedy. And my question is, how did you, to me, it's this mini life course that I want to talk about right now is, how did you find the strength, right? What are 3 ways that you found the strength to do this? Because as beautiful as it is, I would think, and I know this from just losing people in my life, sometimes to even just talk about them, sometimes to tell the stories. I mean, it kind of almost quantum leaps you back to so many areas of trauma and pain and sadness. And it can be difficult. And I think it prevents people from setting up a foundation like you've set up for Shiane, because it's just too painful. And so if you had to give kind of 3 suggestions on how to, for someone else to kind of, follow your path, and find the strength and actually execute and keep it, keep it growing, what would those 3 things be?
3 things. I'll start with 1. I would definitely say take a step back, and think about what that individual would want. And that's not where I started, but that was part of the process. My sister likes to be very front and center, to say the least. She was basically me, but a little bit more bossy, way more intelligent. But I know she would want to be front and center in some capacity. I'm like, how would I make Shiane happy if she was actually alive? And kind of take a step back and be like, let me push forward and do that. Another thing would just be I would just say pushing through that adversity you felt, and those just emotions that you feel rawly, and channeling them to do something of substance in opposition to, maybe getting stuck in a bar or a shell and not wanting to move forward. And luckily, by the grace of God, I'm really able to, any type of really tragic event or bad things that happen, it's just like, all right, well, this happened. This sucks. This is terrible. This is the worst thing that can happen, but it's reality, So it's like, what do I do now? That's all we have is now, right? It's like, what can I do now to, in essence, help this situation be better? And really that's what we did, man. We're just like, all right, let's just push forward. We have this moment in time, and we just, help others and make sure Shiane wasn't here just in vain and just, for some moment in time. Like, we're going to make sure that this is helping as many people as possible, this crazy event that took place. I would say really lift up society while doing that. And lastly, I would say the biggest thing on why I feel like we really were able to do it, just getting outside the box of what's typically done. That's one, and that's me, John, as you know. Like, that's where I live. That's where I want to be. That's who I want to be as much as I can. Just being outside the box, thinking outside the box, doing things that are tough. That's kind of like my thing. But at the end of the day, getting outside the box and not doing your typical, I would say, relive of or like mourning of an individual, and just taking it to a higher stratosphere. That's what we really. That's how we really. I was able to kind of really put it into fruition. It's like, all right, well, this is what's typically done. This is what people do. We usually go off of how we're feeling. I feel some type of way sometimes. I wake up and I cry sometimes, but it is what it is. We are here now. Push forward and let's try to use this and take as much positive as we can put onto the earth from it. Let's do it. Yeah. So I hope I answered the question for 3 off the top of my head.
You did. You answered it beautifully. I as I'm listening to you talk, it's like, you're doing such soul work, right? You're helping so many souls. You're honoring Shiane's soul, and from a personal level, what I'm hearing you say, which I do my best to do this too, is get back to center as fast as you can, so you can live in that servant leadership space, right? It's that, like you said, helping others. And I think if you can get into that heart space, then sometimes it's easier. And you're right. And I'm glad you talked about it. Sometimes you cry. I find myself like, I cry the most, I would say, in my car. I think because I'm like driving somewhere, I'm by myself, and it's like, you just think on a different level. Sometimes it's like a different meditative place when things, for me, just like where I'm reprocessing certain things. So no, I appreciate all that, and what a beautiful foundation that you have set up to honor Shiane. The website is Shiane C Dixon Foundation .org.